My parents disclosed at a celebration they traded my expensive watch for my sister's engagement ring. She ridiculed my poverty, but I was already plotting revenge. Me 31 male. Time to tell my story. Growing up was like living with a drill sergeant. Not just any drill sergeant. One who worshipped his star recruit, my younger brother Tommy, 29. That kid was treated like a gift from heaven. Meanwhile, I got the disappointment special every single day. Dad was one of those guys who thought yelling fixed everything. Manning up was his solution to everything, from broken bones to mental health issues. Mom wasn't any better. Always taking Tommy's side. Always making excuses for him. Tommy is just sensitive. Tommy needs extra support. Meanwhile, I couldn't even get a ride to school in the rain. Had to walk 3 miles once during a thunderstorm. Why? Because Mom was busy driving Tommy to his baseball practice. Got really sick after that. Dad called me weak for missing school. Tommy knew exactly what he was doing though. Little shit would wait until parents weren't looking, then break my stuff and blame it on me. When I was 15, he deliberately deleted my science project from the family computer. Night before it was due. Teacher gave me detention when I tried to explain. Said I was making excuses. Another time he stole $200 I saved up from mowing lawns all summer. Found the empty box hidden in his room. Went to confront him about it. Ran crying to Mom saying I went through his stuff. Accused me of lying about the theft. Mom searched his room like she was blindfolded. Somehow missed the new gaming console he bought with my money. The favoritism was so obvious it was almost funny. My sister Rebecca, 32, saw everything that was happening. She was older and smart enough to stay under the radar. Would give me these knowing looks across the dinner table. Like when Dad was screaming at me for not trimming the hedges perfectly. She knew how messed up it all was, but I don't blame her for not stepping in. Dad had this special way of making people regret standing up to him. Dad had this whole philosophy about raising real men. Basically meant treating me like trash while Tommy got everything handed to him. When I was 15, Dad made me rebuild our entire backyard deck. Middle of July, temperature hitting 95 degrees. Meanwhile, Tommy was inside playing Xbox with the AC on full blast. Passed out from heat exhaustion. Dad's solution? Dumped a bucket of water on me. Told me to get back to work. Real Father of the Year material right there. School was my only escape. Actually pretty good at it. Especially chemistry and engineering. Teachers said I had real potential. Dad couldn't care less about my grades. Only time he ever looked at my report card was when I got a C+. Gave me this huge lecture about embarrassing the family name. Meanwhile, Tommy was barely passing anything. Got praised for getting a B-. When I turned 18, everything got even worse. Dad dropped this bomb on me. Had to start paying rent. $600 a month plus utilities and groceries. Tommy didn't have to pay a single cent. Didn't even have to clean his own room. Dad's excuse was that Tommy needed to focus on his baseball scholarship. Like I wasn't busting my ass in school too. So there I was, trying to finish senior year while working 2 different jobs, pulling 35 to 40 hours a week on top of classes. Grades started slipping, getting maybe 4 hours of sleep per night. Started getting these killer migraines. Dad said I was being weak, told me to toughen up. By graduation I looked like a zombie, lost like 25 pounds, had these dark circles under my eyes, looking like I'd been in a fight. Mom would act concerned sometimes, but only when Dad wasn't around. Never actually did anything to help. Tommy would just smirk when Dad made comments about how I wasn't pulling my weight, even though I was literally paying their bills. Rebecca would sometimes slip me an energy drink or cover one of my chores, but she was heading to university soon. Had her own stuff to deal with. Worst part wasn't even how exhausted I was. It was knowing that nothing I did would ever be good enough. Tommy could fart the national anthem. They'd praise him for his musical talent. Meanwhile, I could work myself to death. Still be the family disappointment. Remember this one time I fixed Dad's truck. Alternator was completely dead. Spent my entire Saturday working on it. Got covered in grease. Hands all cut up from the engine. But I got it running perfectly. Dad's response? Took you long enough? Didn't even say thanks. Next day, Tommy took out the garbage. I shit you not. Dad went on for 20 minutes about how his son was becoming responsible. The double standard was absolutely insane. Then came the final straw. About 2 months after graduation. Had this massive blowout that changed everything. Just finished a double shift at this local diner. Got home around midnight. Dead on my feet. All I wanted was to crash for a few hours. Had another morning shift coming up. Walk into my room. Find Tommy wearing my only decent work boots. Tracking mud everywhere. These weren't fancy boots or anything, but they cost me a full day's pay. Only ones I had that didn't destroy my feet during 8-hour shifts. Was too tired to fight. Just told him to take them off and clean up his mess. Little shit just smirked at me. Deliberately stomped in the muddy puddle he'd made on my floor. That's when I lost it. Started yelling at him. Dad must have heard us. Came storming in like I was trying to murder his precious son. Didn't even ask what happened. Just started screaming at me about respecting my brother's space. In my own damn room. Tried explaining these were my work boots, that I needed them for tomorrow's shift. Dad grabbed them off Tommy's feet, threw them straight in the trash, told me to just buy another pair, like I could magically make money appear. After giving him most of my paychecks for rent, finally snapped, told him exactly what I thought of his parenting, called him a pathetic excuse for a father, one who got off on tearing me down, while babying his precious golden child. Said everything I'd been holding back for years. Told him Tommy was becoming a useless leech because of him. Should have seen what came next. Dad got right in my face, veins popping in his forehead, looking like he was about to explode, challenging me to do something, hoping I'd swing first. I didn't take the bait, but it didn't matter. Dear old Dad decided it was time for a lesson in respect. Nothing says family love like your father beating the shit out of his adult son. Over a pair of work boots, he knocked me around the living room pretty good. Mom just took Tommy to another room. Heaven forbid the golden child witnessed Dad's anger issues. Managed to get out with just a bloody nose, split lip, and what would become a pretty impressive black eye. About a week later, something weird happened. Dad's whole attitude changed. Not nice exactly, but less of a complete asshole than usual. Actually bought me new work boots. Didn't say a word about our fight. Started asking about my jobs. Even complimented me when I fixed the leaky bathroom faucet. Should have known something was up. Leopards don't change their spots. And my dad was basically a leopard with anger issues and a receding hairline. But when you've spent your whole life trying to get your dad's approval, even the smallest crumb looks like a feast. So I went along with it, thinking maybe getting my ass kicked had somehow been a turning point. Then one Friday he comes up with this plan. Wants us to bond on a fishing trip. Just me and him. Man to man. Said he realized I was working hard. Wanted to reconnect before I moved on with my life. Got to admit, part of me actually believed him. When you're raised by someone like that, there's always this stupid little voice hoping, maybe this time will be different. So I called in sick to both jobs. Something I never did. We packed up his truck and headed out, going to this lake about 4 hours from home. Thought I was about to get some Dr. Phil moment. Boy, was I wrong. Whole drive, he's being weirdly normal. Didn't say a word. Thought he was just putting his thoughts together. Must be hard for him to be the good father, after beating the shit out of me. So I gave him time. Then we stopped for gas. Middle of nowhere. Nothing but trees for miles. As soon as he put the truck in park, Dad's whole attitude changed. That fake normal act dropped instantly. His face twisted into that familiar look of contempt. Before I could even ask what was happening, he reached across me, flung open my door, literally shoved me out of the truck. I stumbled and fell hard on the gravel. When I looked up confused, he was tossing my empty water bottle after me. Time to man up for real, he sneered. If you're tough enough to talk back to me, let's see if you're tough enough to find your own way home. Consider this your graduation present. Freedom from the family you're so ungrateful for. Then he laughed, added, maybe out here you'll finally grow a pair? Since nothing I've done has worked, don't bother coming back until you do. I stood there with my ass in the dirt, watching as he revved the engine, peeled out of the parking lot, dust flying everywhere. My wallet, phone, everything, still in my backpack in his truck. That's when it hit me. This entire bonding trip was planned from the start, just to dump me in the middle of nowhere. Hit me like a punch to the gut. Finally sank in. My dad never wanted to fix our relationship. He just wanted to break me one last time. So there I was, standing in a cloud of dust, watching my dad's truck disappear down the road. The gas station was one of those automated ones. No store, no attendant, just a couple of pumps with card readers, literally nothing but trees and empty road, stretching in both directions. After the initial shock wore off, checked my pockets. Had maybe $23 in cash, some lint, and a pack of gum. No phone, no wallet, no water except the empty bottle he'd thrown at me. Not exactly ideal survival gear. Temperature was dropping too. Mid-October, and while days were still warm, nights got pretty cold in this part of the state. Spent a good 15 minutes just staring at the road, trying to figure out which direction might lead to civilization. Started walking with my thumb out. Whenever I heard a car, traffic was basically non-existent. Maybe one car every 45 minutes. None of them stopped. Can't really blame them. Some random dude with a black eye on a deserted road. Doesn't exactly scream safe ride. After about 3 hours of walking, my feet were already starting to blister. Getting that familiar raw spot on my heels. Sun was starting to set. Beginning to wonder if I'd need to figure out how to sleep in the woods. Not gonna lie, that thought was pretty terrifying. Then spotted something through the trees. Rode about half a mile away. Found this tiny convenience store attached to what looked like somebody's house, straight out of a horror movie. But beggars can't be choosers. Old dude behind the counter took one look at me. My face was still messed up from the fight with Dad. I was covered in dust from the road. Probably looked half dead from walking for hours. Made up some BS story about how my buddies played a prank on me during a camping trip. Left me behind as a joke. Not sure if he believed me, but he let me use the store phone. First I tried calling home. Mom picked up. I'll never forget what she said. Started explaining what Dad did, expecting her to be shocked, or worried, or literally have any normal human reaction. Instead, she got all defensive. Said Dad had already called, told her the whole story, about how I'd thrown a tantrum when he asked me to help unload the truck, about how I needed to learn respect and be a man. Complete fiction. But she ate it up. When I tried telling her the truth, she just said I needed to figure it out, that I was old enough to handle myself. Then she actually hung up on me. That's when it really hit me. They were both totally fine with this. They had planned it together. I was never the son they wanted, so they were literally throwing me away. The store owner was giving me this look of pity, but I had to keep it together. Was about to call Rebecca, but knew she couldn't do much. Didn't want to put her in the middle of this mess. So I called the only person I knew would actually help. My Uncle Marcus, Dad's brother. They hadn't spoken in years, because Uncle Marcus always called Dad out on his BS parenting style. Uncle Marcus had tried to stay in touch with me, but Dad always made it difficult. Still had his number memorized, though. He picked up on the third ring. I just laid it all out. Where I was, what happened, everything. There was this long pause. Then he just said, "Stay where you are. I'll be there soon." Store owner let me hang out until Uncle Marcus showed up. Even gave me a Mountain Dew and a sandwich on the house. When Uncle Marcus's beat-up Dodge finally pulled in, it was almost midnight. He took one look at me, didn't say a word, just gave me this brief nod, and opened the passenger door. The drive back was mostly quiet. He asked if I needed medical attention. I said no. He asked if I wanted to talk about it. I said not yet, and that was it. No pressure, no interrogation. Most comfortable silence I'd ever experienced. About halfway back, I finally asked the question that had been bouncing around in my head all day. "Did you know my dad was like this? Always knew he was an ass. Didn't know he'd go this far?" Then after a minute, he added, "Your dad was always jealous of anyone who didn't worship the ground he walked on." We drove the rest of the way to his place in silence. He lived in this small house about 2 hours from my parents'. Showed me to his spare room. Really just an office with a pull-out couch. Said we'd figure things out in the morning. As I was about to crash, dead on my feet from the longest day of my life, he paused at the door. Said something I'll never forget. "Your dad didn't know what to do with a son who could think for himself. That's his failure, not yours." Then he left me alone. I slept for 16 straight hours. First decent sleep I'd had in months. That first week at Uncle Marcus's was weird as hell. Kept hoping my phone would ring. Mom calling to check if I was okay. It never did. The only family member who reached out was Rebecca. Her texts were super careful, like she was afraid someone would see them. Later found out my parents told her I'd run away after a fight with Dad. They were giving me space to cool off. Yeah, right. More like they were covering their asses, in case anyone asked questions. Anyway, Uncle Marcus didn't waste time with pity parties. Day after I arrived, he took me to get a new ID. Since mine was in the backpack Dad drove off with, had to go through this whole process to prove who I was without documentation. What a pain in the ass. Then we set up a new bank account, one my parents couldn't access. Third day, Uncle Marcus drove me back to collect my last paychecks from both jobs. That was awkward. Had to explain to my managers why I suddenly disappeared and wouldn't be coming back. Uncle Marcus never made me feel like a burden. Wasn't the warm, fuzzy type, more of an actions speak louder than words kind of guy. But he made space for me in his life without complaint. Never asked how long I planned to stay. Or reminded me I was sleeping in his office. Just handled things with this quiet efficiency. Really respected that about him. About a week after I moved in, he mentioned there was an opening at the warehouse where he worked. Nothing glamorous. Basically moving heavy stuff around all day. But it paid $16 an hour with actual benefits. That was nearly double what I made at the diner. Plus no dealing with annoying customers. I jumped at it. The interview was pretty much just a formality. Manager was an old buddy of my uncle. Pretty clear I had the job before I walked in. Still had to do all the paperwork. But by the end of the week, I was officially employed. First day on the warehouse floor was brutal. Thought I was in decent shape from all the manual labor I'd done. But this was different. 10 hours of lifting, carrying, and stacking, in a building with crappy ventilation. By lunch, my shirt was soaked through with sweat. By the end of the shift, my back felt like someone had taken a baseball bat to it. Uncle Marcus just tossed me some work gloves when we got home. Said, tomorrow will be worse. The soreness takes a day to kick in. He wasn't wrong. But the weird thing was, as physically demanding as the job was, it was actually less stressful than my old situation. The older guys at the warehouse didn't treat me like crap. If they saw me struggling with something, they'd jump in and show me a better technique, instead of calling me stupid or weak. Plus, the paycheck was solid. After taxes, I was clearing more than enough to start saving, even after giving Uncle Marcus some money for rent, which he tried to refuse. But I insisted, was determined not to be a freeloader like my brother. Speaking of my brother, heard through Rebecca that he totaled Dad's truck 2 weeks after they dumped me. Apparently he was driving drunk, wrapped it around a tree. Somehow he walked away with barely a scratch, and somehow my parents weren't even mad about it. Dad just fixed the truck. Tommy faced 0 consequences. Classic. 3 months into working at the warehouse. Had enough saved up to buy this crappy car. From one of the guys at work, it had 190,000 miles on it. The AC was completely dead. Radio only picked up like 3 stations. But I needed it. First thing I ever owned outright. Uncle Marcus helped me fix it up on weekends. Taught me how to change the oil, replace brake pads, all that practical stuff my dad never bothered with. After 6 months, I was looking at apartments. Found this tiny studio above a Chinese restaurant, about 10 minutes from the warehouse. The constant cooking smells took some getting used to, and the whole place smelled like sesame oil. But the rent was cheap. Signed the lease and moved in, with nothing but a mattress on the floor, a folding chair, and some dishes. The next year was all about the grind. Work, save, improve my place little by little. Started hitting the gym regularly to build up my strength for work. Wasn't trying to get huge, just functional strength. Between that and hauling stuff at the factory all day, put on about 25 pounds of muscle. Wasn't scrawny anymore, that's for sure. Uncle Marcus and I fell into this routine. I'd go over to his place most Sundays. We'd watch whatever game was on, fix stuff around his house, or just hang out. He wasn't big on heart-to-hearts, but occasionally he'd drop these nuggets of wisdom that always hit hard. Rebecca and I stayed in touch through all this. She was away at college, which was good. Meant she didn't have to deal with our parents as much. She'd call maybe once a week. We'd catch up. She'd fill me in on family gossip. How Tommy was flunking out of community college, but somehow it was the professor's fault. How Dad's contracting business was struggling, but he was too proud to change anything. I listened, but felt disconnected from it all. Like she was talking about some TV show I used to watch. Around the 1-year mark of being on my own. Got promoted at the warehouse to machine operator. Better pay, less heavy lifting, more technical skill. Had to learn all these regulations, but I was good at that stuff. That first year on my own, the biggest change wasn't external stuff, like the job or the apartment. It was realizing that all the crap my dad had drilled into my head about me being weak or a disappointment was complete BS. Turns out I was pretty capable when not being actively sabotaged by the people who were supposed to support me. Who would have thought? So after that first year on my own, things started really coming together for me. By 25, I'd worked my way up to shift supervisor. At the warehouse, the promotion meant serious responsibility and a nice bump in pay. Suddenly, I was in charge of scheduling, quality control, making sure production quotas were met. Had about 18 guys working under me, some of them twice my age. That was awkward at first, especially with a couple dudes who still saw me as Marcus's nephew. Around this time, I also started taking night classes at the community college, studying business management. Warehouse work was decent money, but I wasn't trying to destroy my body long term, like I saw happening with some of the older workers, guys in their 50s with permanent back problems, hearing loss, and messed up joints from 30 years on the floor. No thanks. The classes were tough, on top of working 50+ hours a week, but way easier than when I was dealing with my dad's BS. Actually got straight A's, for the first time in my life. Meanwhile, Rebecca kept me updated on the family drama, which was getting better and better, or worse and worse, depending on your perspective. Dad's contracting business was tanking. Turns out being an asshole to employees and customers eventually catches up with you. He'd lost some major accounts, was scrambling to stay afloat. Mom had to get a part-time job, for the first time in her life, which she apparently complained about constantly. But the real star of the show was Tommy. My golden brother had fully lived up to his potential. As a complete screw-up, after dropping out of community college, He'd bounced between minimum wage jobs, never lasting more than a few months anywhere. Had 3 DUIs by 23. Lost his license, and was now completely dependent on our parents. To drive him around, Rebecca said he'd also developed a pretty serious pill problem. Though of course my parents were in total denial about it. The best part? Every time Tommy screwed up, he'd blame someone else. And my parents would back him 100%. Boss fired him for constantly showing up late. Boss was out to get him. Got arrested for driving with a suspended license. Cop was targeting him unfairly. Failed a drug test for a warehouse job. Test was obviously wrong. The delusion was Olympic level. By 27, I was operations manager at the warehouse, overseeing 3 different shifts, basically running the place day to day. The owners were in their mid-60s, looking to semi-retire, so they were happy to offload more responsibility to someone competent. Had my own office and everything. I'd also upgraded from my studio to a decent 2-bedroom apartment, traded my beater Honda for a new Tundra, and had actual furniture. That didn't come from goodwill. Uncle Marcus was pretty much the only real family I acknowledged at this point. We still did our Sunday routine, tried to pay him back for everything he'd done for me, but he always shrugged it off. Family doesn't keep score, he'd say. That hit hard considering how my actual parents had done nothing but keep score my whole life. Rebecca graduated college, got a job in advertising, about an hour from where I lived. She didn't move in with me or anything, but we'd meet up for dinner every couple weeks. It was cool seeing her build her own life, away from our parents. She was still in contact with them, but kept them at arm's length. Called it her sanity distance. Then at 29, I took the biggest risk of my life. The warehouse owners mentioned they were considering selling the business and retiring completely. After crunching numbers for weeks and meeting with a bank, I made them an offer. Couldn't afford to buy the whole operation outright, but I could swing a partnership deal with a path to majority ownership. They went for it, partly because they knew I could keep the place running smoothly, and partly because training a new operations manager would have been a pain in the ass for them. 2 months of paperwork and meetings later, I owned 30% of the business, where I'd started loading trucks. First thing I did was hire Uncle Marcus. As a senior consultant with a fat salary, man deserved to get off the floor. After 40 years of hard labor, he tried to refuse, said he didn't need charity. But I told him it was smart business, to keep his knowledge in-house. That got him to accept. Second thing I did was modernize everything. The previous owners had been dragging their feet on updating equipment and systems that hadn't changed since the 90s. Invested a chunk of capital in new machinery, better software, improved safety measures. Workers were happier, production went up, and profits followed. My investment was already paying off within a year. Life was good. Had a career I was proud of. People who respected me. A comfortable place to live. And absolutely zero contact with the people who tried to break me. Perfect ending, right? Except life doesn't wrap up in neat little bows. Rebecca called me on a Wednesday night. Not our usual catch-up time, so I knew something was up. "Have you checked your email today?" she asked, sounding weird. I hadn't. Been in meetings all day. Pulled it up while we were on the phone. Saw something from an address I didn't recognize. When I read it, my stomach dropped. After more than a decade of silence, my mother had found my work email and sent a message. Rebecca confirmed she'd gotten one too. "They're in trouble," she said. Like serious trouble. Turned out my parents had gone from financially struggling to completely desperate. Dad's business had finally failed entirely. They'd taken out a second mortgage on the house years ago. Were about to go into foreclosure. But the cherry on top of this shit sundae, they'd been gambling. A lot. Like pawned mom's wedding ring a lot. Apparently they'd convinced themselves they could dig out of the hole with one big win. And that's where Tommy came in. My brother, now 30 and still living at home, had racked up some serious debts with people you don't want to owe money to. Used my parents' credit cards without permission, forged Dad's signature on some loan documents, and generally brought the whole house of cards crashing down. Now they were all facing the consequences together. The email was what you'd expect. Vague mentions of family emergencies and difficult times, without any actual accountability. Not a single "we're sorry for abandoning you," just this assumption that blood would trump everything, and I'd rushed to bail them out. I deleted it without replying, and told Rebecca I wasn't getting involved. She understood, but I could tell she was stressed. They were putting pressure on her to talk sense into me, since she was the only one, still in contact with both sides. That night I couldn't sleep, not because I felt guilty. I didn't owe them a damn thing, but because I kept thinking how predictable this all was. Everything falling apart for them was the natural consequence of how they'd lived their lives. My dad spent years tearing me down, while propping up Tommy as the golden child. Now I was thriving, while Tommy had destroyed himself and taken them down with him. It was almost too perfect. 3 days later, my work phone rang, with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Thomas, it's your mother." And that's when the real drama began. For a second I just sat there, in my office chair. Hadn't heard her voice in over a decade. It sounded older, tired, but still had that same tone she'd always used when she wanted something. This fake sweet thing. That made my skin crawl. "How did you get this number?" I finally asked. She ignored the question completely, just launched into this whole speech about how they were going through a rough time and needed to put the past behind us because family has to stick together. Classic manipulation tactics, trying to skip right over the part where they tossed me in the woods and pretended I didn't exist for 12 years. I let her talk, not saying a word, partly because I was still processing that this was actually happening, and because I knew it would drive her crazy. My mom always hated silence. After about 3 minutes of her rant, she finally got to the point. They needed money. A lot of it. The house was going into foreclosure in 3 weeks. Dad's business was bankrupt, and Tommy had made some poor decisions. That had financial consequences. I almost laughed. "When's the last time you called me, Mom? To check if I was okay? Or maybe to see if I was alive?" She got defensive immediately. "You know how your father is. He has his pride, and you weren't exactly reaching out either." Unbelievable. I was the one who needed to reach out. After they abandoned me, the twisted logic they had. "How much?" I asked, just to see what they thought I was worth. "We need $150,000 to clear everything up," she said. Like she was asking to borrow $20. "We can work out a payment plan, of course." "Yeah, right." Like they'd ever pay back a dime. I told her I'd think about it, and hung up. Then I called Rebecca. She confirmed everything Mom had said about their financial situation, but added the parts Mom had conveniently left out, like how they'd blown through their retirement fund at casinos, and how Tommy had stolen their credit cards to pay off some seriously bad people. The situation was even worse than Mom had made it sound. The next week, Mom called every day, getting progressively more desperate. Dad never called himself. Too proud, I guess. But she kept saying he was concerned and wanted to make amends. I didn't believe that for a second. Finally, I decided to end this once and for all. Told Mom I'd meet them at my office that Friday to discuss options. I had zero intention of giving them money, but I wanted to see them face to face. Maybe part of me needed closure. Maybe I wanted them to see what I'd built without them. Either way, it was time to finish this chapter of my life. Friday came, and they showed up at the warehouse right on time. I watched them through my office window. As they pulled up in a beat-up old Chrysler, Dad had lost weight, had this defeated slump to his shoulders that I'd never seen before. Mom's hair had gone completely gray. Had my assistant bring them to my office. The look on their faces when they saw me sitting behind that big desk in my own office was almost worth all the shit they'd put me through. Dad's eyes darted around, taking in the awards on the wall, the view from the window, all the signs that I'd done pretty damn well without him. Mom was doing that fake smile thing, probably already calculating how much she could squeeze out of me. "Thomas, you look good," she started, all sugary. "We've thought about you so often." I didn't bother with small talk. "Let's get to the point. You need $150,000 or you lose the house. Tommy screwed up again and you're out of options. That about cover it?" Dad finally spoke. "The economy hit my business hard. We made some investments that didn't pay off. Couldn't even admit they'd gambled it all away." "Rebecca told me everything," I said. "About the casinos, about Tommy stealing your credit cards, about the second mortgage that shut them up for a second. Mom recovered first. Everyone makes mistakes, but we're family. Family helps each other through tough times. Funny how I wasn't family. When you left me stranded in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but the clothes on my back, or when Dad beat the shit out of me over a pair of work boots, or when you hung up on me when I called for help." Dad's face got red. "That was different. You needed to learn to be a man. And what did Tommy need to learn? When you bailed him out after every DUI? After he stole from you? After he totaled your truck?" No answer to that. Just uncomfortable shifting in their chairs. "All right," I said calmly. "You need $150,000 to get the house back, right? Fine. I'll give you $250,000. $150,000 to save the house. Another $100,000 for your retirement." They looked shocked. Then my mother smiled. "Thomas, I knew you still cared about us. However," I continued, "I have one condition. I will abandon you in the woods. If you can find your way out within 3 days, I'll give you the money." dead silence. Then my father slammed his hand on the desk. "You ungrateful little bastard! This is how you treat your parents?" I shrugged. "Your choice. No one's forcing you." I called security to escort them out. Dad actually stood up, face purple with rage. "You ungrateful little... After everything we did for you?" I cut him off. "You mean like charging me rent at 18 while Tommy lived free? Or abandoning me in the woods? Or telling Mom to hang up when I called for help? That's everything?" Mom tried a different approach. All tears and manipulation. "Thomas, please. We're about to be homeless. Tommy is in real trouble with dangerous people." I shrugged again. "Your choice. No one's forcing you." Called security to escort them out. And since that day, I stopped hearing from them. After they left, I sat in my office for a long time, just processing. Thought I might feel bad or conflicted. But I didn't, just felt done. Like I'd finally closed a chapter. That had been hanging open for too long. Called Rebecca that night to give her the rundown. She wasn't surprised either. Said they'd rather lose everything than admit they were wrong about anything. A year has passed since then. I'm doing great with my job, and I haven't heard from them again. Sometimes news still finds me though. Me and Rebecca would grab coffee together, whenever she visited. One day to tell me my parents had lost everything. I didn't ask for details. I didn't care. Do I feel bad about how things turned out for them? Not even a little. They made their choices. I made mine. They threw me away expecting me to fail. But instead I built something better than they ever had. The ultimate karma isn't taking something from them. It's succeeding so completely that they have to live with knowing what they threw away. Some bridges stay burned for a reason. For those wondering about Tommy, no, I haven't heard from him directly. And don't plan to. We were never close even before all this. Yes, I'm still part owner of the warehouse, and business is good. For those saying I should have helped my parents anyway, because they're still your parents, hard disagree. DNA doesn't entitle you to exploit someone you've abused. They had a chance to own their shit, and couldn't even do that. And no, I don't think I was too harsh. They literally abandoned me in the woods to teach me a lesson. Karma's a bitch.